TV-8, we bring Iowa home to you.
It's 10 o'clock. Now, live from Iowa's leading news station, Kevin Cooney, Dave Busick, Pete Taylor with sports, and Connie McBurney with the weather. This is TV-8 News live at 10.
Good evening. It appears now that chances are getting slimmer all the time for a Massey Ferguson parts plant to move from Racine, Wisconsin to the old Massey plant on the Des Moines south side. Massey executive Jim Wimpress says plans to relocate the plant have been put on hold for at least 1 year. He blames the continuing farm recession and the federal decision not to provide a grant to help fund the move. Massey would have brought more than 400 jobs to Des Moines. All plans have been put on hold until the farm economy revives again, which isn't expected until 1986 at the earliest. Well, at age 70, the longtime head of Iowa's Beer and Liquor Control Department says it's time to retire. Today, Director Roland Gallagher made it official. He is stepping down as leader of the state's liquor monopoly after 13 years on the job. Gallagher says he's proud of three main accomplishments during his tenure: the establishment of the self-service liquor stores, the construction of a new state warehouse in Ankeny, and an improvement in the inventory.
We think another accomplishment has been the selection of products we have, particularly in wine. I've devoted a lot of time. The wine board had been formed for 2 years before I started, but we now meet every week. And we meet 50 times a year. A couple years ago, we met 80 times. We're 300 and some wines behind.
Director Gallagher says he is not resigning over recent allegations that his second in command was showing favoritism for another employee. He says he has planned this retirement for some months.
The Des Moines City Council will meet in special session next week to begin the search for a new city manager. Richard Wilkie announced that he is resigning February 4th to work for the Whites Corporation here in Des Moines. Today, the majority of council members say they want a strong manager to replace Wilkie, but some, like Mayor Pete Crivero, also want to find someone who will cooperate more with the council. Downtown business leaders are also concerned about Wilkie's replacement and are worried the city council is asking for the impossible.
You have this problem between the city council that wants to make the decisions and a strong manager who is hired to make these decisions. So there's a tension there, and it can get awfully personal at the time. Seems to me the council should set the policy, and the manager should make the decisions within that policy.
Council members are undecided whether to pay Wilkie's successor the $80,000 a year that he is currently making. The council is expected to select either Finance Director Charles O'Connor or Assistant City Manager Cy Carney as the acting city manager when Wilkie leaves in early February.
4 persons were killed and 3 more wounded during a bank robbery today in the small town of Geronimo, Oklahoma. A lone gunman entered the bank and forced 8 people inside, including an infant, into a back room. Then the gunman forced them all to lie down on the floor and started shooting. The only person uninjured was the baby. A customer said she found the dead when she entered the bank and found no one in the lobby. The robber, who escaped with an unknown amount of cash, is still being sought.
The sheriff of the remote Montana community of Bozeman yesterday single-handedly captured the 2 most wanted men in that area. The 2 were found in a remote mountain area and held at gunpoint by Sheriff Johnny France. Don and Dan Nichols had eluded massive air and ground searches since last summer. That's when they kidnapped former Olympic biathlon team member Carrie Swenson as she jogged along a mountain trail. The 2 so-called mountain men later killed one of the people searching for Swenson. She was later released, and the widespread search by hundreds turned into a one-man search by the sheriff until he found the men gathered around a campfire.
It was nearly a Mexican standoff. There was those few moments while he was holding that rifle that decisions were going through my mind. How far am I going to let him raise that rifle before I have to shoot him?
He didn't have to shoot him, though. Don and Dan Nichols were taken into custody. Don Nichols charged with murder, his son facing additional charges. For the second time this week, a Des Moines police officer has been jumped and attacked by several citizens. That happened at the Woolworth store at 2nd and Euclid. Off-duty officer Joe Gonzalez, working as a security guard, says he tried to arrest one of 5 women who'd been asked to leave the store. The other 4 women jumped him, and Gonzalez suffered cuts and bruises. He radioed for help and declined medical treatment.
Doctors at the Humana Heart Institute in Louisville, Kentucky say the man with a mechanical heart, William Schrader, is recovering brilliantly tonight following a stroke last night. The stroke partially paralyzed Schrader, and doctors say that when the attack came, he could not use his right side of his body and could not speak. Today, officials who work with the team of doctors on the project report that he can now raise his arm and move his feet, and he has been talking. They are performing tests to see just what happened, and they say it will delay future mechanical heart implants.
Well, yes, it does. We've had a couple of calls with very suitable candidates that we mentioned this morning have not been sent to the committee or anything else, but we told the physicians involved that we would not do anything until Mr. Schrader was ready to leave the hospital or we felt very comfortable with his condition. Obviously, the fact that he's had a problem puts our time frame back again.
The doctors called last night's stroke sobering, serving as a vivid reminder that the entire process is still experimental.
And coming up next, we'll have details on a new program to help the starving in Ethiopia.
And a new program that helps some special Iowa children get a better education. Stay with us.
The parents of a small group of retarded children are celebrating today after winning support from state officials for a special classroom program. The children are enrolled in special classes within regular school buildings. There are only 2 such classrooms in Des Moines. This week, the Department of Public Instruction sent a message to all Iowa school districts saying there needs to be more of this. Mary Bach reports.
The 8 retarded children in this class are doing something only a few handicapped kids in Des Moines can do. They're playing with schoolmates who are not handicapped.
And these kids just automatically accepted him. There was never a problem. He receives phone calls from children in the school here that are his friends. You know, they're not buddy-buddy friends, but they're friends. He sees them at Merle Hay Mall. They say, "Hi, Jamie," teachers, parents. You know, we run into people and I don't know them, but my son does. You know, it's a whole different world now.
The handicapped children have their own specialized classroom, but they share the rest of the building with everyone else. Federal law requires handicapped students to be provided the least restrictive environment. This week, the Department of Public Instruction decided that means more classrooms like this are needed.
We aren't specifying a major concern about the educational program itself, but we are very much concerned that for many of the children that are being served in segregated facilities, there's another part of their development that isn't being addressed.
We need to buy carrots.
Cabbage.
How much are they?
45 cents.
Some parents fear that moving out of a specialized school building will hurt their child. But now, even parents who fought the idea at first wouldn't have it any other way.
He's being allowed to be a 12-year-old boy. That's all it is.
As a matter of fact, Martin and other parents filed a suit against the Des Moines Public Schools this fall to extend the program so their children could continue. Since then, the district has decided to expand into the junior high and high school levels. Mary Bach, TV-8 News.
Despite what appeared to be no action by the United States during that Tehran hijacking, there are reports tonight of a plan to try and intervene by using a special U.S. squad called the Delta Team. Sources in Washington and Kuwait say sections of the special unit were dispatched to an unnamed country that borders Iran while the Kuwait jetliner sat on the Tehran airport tarmac. However, that was when the plane was still flyable, they say, and American intelligence thought it might take off again for one of those bordering countries. But the plan to take action was scrubbed when the hijackers disabled the plane. By the way, the Speaker of the Iranian Parliament said today that that country has no plans to extradite the hijackers who commandeered the plane and killed 2 Americans. He said Iran, quote, never tried to please the United States.
The Reagan administration plans to start returning 2,700 Cuban boat people back to Cuba within the next month. The announcement by the White House indicates the so-called undesirables, criminals and those with severe mental problems, came over in the 1980 Mariel boat lift and were not eligible for resident status. The agreement calls for the United States and Cuba to resume normal immigration procedures for persons wishing to come to the United States. Well, the Iowa Cares campaign to raise money for food shipments to Ethiopia topped the $400,000 mark today. Also, a new effort to supplement Iowa Cares was announced. It will send medical supplies and eventually volunteer doctors and nurses from Iowa to help out in remote areas of Ethiopia. Doctors said in Des Moines today that 1.5 million vitamins will be sent to Ethiopia in January. Most of the vitamins will be donated by Iowa hospitals. IV solutions will be sent the following month. The coordinator of this project, Dr. Stephen Gleason, is with us live tonight from his office in West Des Moines. Dr. Gleason, the medical need in that kind of a situation must just be enormous. What can you hope to do? How much good do you think that you can do?
Well, you're right. The situation is devastating. We hope to focus on the same geographic areas that the Register's Iowa Cares program is focusing on. I think the intent is to select several camps that can receive both Iowa food and Iowa medical assistance.
What kind of conditions do you expect to find there? And you're asking for volunteers. What kind of a volunteer are you looking for?
We're looking for volunteers who want to spend 3 to 6 months of their time. We're talking about physicians, nurses, technicians, a variety of different personnel. The conditions will be somewhat primitive. They should expect that. We have an orientation program that will take place here in Iowa, conducted by an Ethiopian physician, Dr. Haptagaber, who has consented to orient the people that will be traveling to Ethiopia.
What kind of difficulties do you run across in treating people with severe malnourishment problems?
Well, one of the major problems we have is that, first of all, some of the food that's going over to Ethiopia doesn't contain appropriate balance of vitamins, and of course doesn't contain some of the medications that you need to treat certain of the illnesses. So in some cases you really have to treat the vitamin deficiencies and the illnesses concomitantly with supplying food supplements for the patient to get better. In some cases they can't really absorb the food. Mothers can't produce breast milk until those vitamin supplements and or medicines are given.
And presumably you have all the other medical problems that anybody else would have, any other given group of people too.
Yes, absolutely. They're amplified in many cases, particularly infectious disease that affects people more easily when they're in a debilitated state.
Okay, Dr. Gleason, thanks very much for talking with us tonight. If anyone is interested in contributing to or volunteering for this project, you should call this telephone number, 223-5220. Again, that's 223-5220.
A Clear Lake fireman died last night while fighting a motel fire in that community. 50-year-old Jack Evans collapsed at a fire at the Hilltop Motel. Efforts to revive him at the scene failed. He died later at a Mason City hospital. One other firefighter was treated for smoke inhalation, and a motel occupant suffered burns on both hands. Authorities say they're not sure what started the fire. An investigation underway. The county medical examiner is also investigating the death. Damage to the building was minimal. Connie McBurney here now with us to talk more about the weekend weather and the chances of precipitation therein.
And there are some, yes, and we're still well off because they're having problems elsewhere in the country. Our weather looks good in comparison. Maybe not great, but we'll talk about it next. One of the scenes of the season is this. It's a live nativity scene at the Ivy Centennial Church. Ivy and the Ivy Church are on Highway 163. That's University Avenue as it goes out of Des Moines. It's about 6 miles east of the state fairgrounds. And they'll be doing this through the weekend. Ivy. I think it's even smaller than Lacey, and that's saying something. Pretty night out there if you don't mind a little cold weather. 24 degrees, cloudy skies. Wind has died down to practically nothing. 92% the humidity. A lot of moisture in the air if you're out there. Barometer falling at 30.29. And some of the moisture in the air is in the form of freezing rain and sleet. Not very far away. Right over here on the Kansas-Nebraska border. Can't really see it on radar, but it is over there, and we'll be probably entering the western part of the state in a couple of hours. Right now, western Iowa has cloudy skies. That's coming ahead of the precipitation, and they could very likely see some freezing rain right over here. Meanwhile, the rest of the state clear up in the northeastern corner. That's why they have coldest temperatures, and southern Iowa and eastern Iowa still having the best of it at this hour. We are going to see moisture moving in from the Midwest, and it's going to continue, but there's a record we need to talk about for this date. It'll make things look good by comparison. In 1901, the high temperature in Des Moines was 3 below. That's supposed to make the forecast look good to you. Highway condition reports looked pretty good by this afternoon, but of course anything that thaws during the day when you drop below freezing is going to freeze, and there are a lot of slippery spots out there. If you've been driving on city streets, you undoubtedly already know that. We had a lot of snow to start with. Western and north central Iowa received the most. Denison with 8 inches, Pisgah with 9 inches. This is North Omaha, just across the border, with 8 inches. That's because that's where the weather reporting station is, in Omaha, not in Council Bluffs. Eastern Iowa received much less snow. Freezing rain for the most part from about Ottumwa south and east, so that included the Burlington area as well. Lamoni picked up just a trace. Here at the airport we had 4 inches, and of course now that has an icy crust on it. And we've also had the cloudy skies much of today. Movement showed the snow system moving away through the Great Lakes, and a lot of development down here in the southwest. This is what will be bringing the rain and freezing rain, and it should be rain for the most part. It's just tonight that will be cold enough for it to be icy here. It is already icy south and west. Travel advisories out for much of Nebraska and Kansas. It's icy also in southern Missouri, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. They've been having ice storms much of the day. They report extremely hazardous travel in Texas. A number of highway accidents down there with whole highways closed. Storm warning is out for northern New Mexico, and travel advisories all the way down through western Texas. Frontal line reaches all the way out here. In fact, ahead of this system, they were setting record highs today all through the south and east. Now they have a travel advisory in New York as the system that we received our snow from moves into that area. Computer radar shows some of that very intense activity in the south and west. Late afternoon highs, East Coast 50s, 80s across the south, Midwest a mixture of 50s ahead of the system, 30s coming in behind the next one, and our highs today mostly 20s and 30s. Here in Des Moines, a low of 25, high of 32, put us not too far from normal. Eastern part of the state just a little bit warmer. Tonight there is again the chance of freezing rain in the west, dense fog in the north and east. Lows tonight mostly 20s with a southeasterly wind. By tomorrow look for highs in the 40s, and that should keep the rain in a liquid form except in the northeastern corner. They could see some freezing rain tomorrow morning. Southeasterly winds and cloudy skies. Mostly cloudy tonight too for central Iowa, a low near 20 with a light southerly wind. By tomorrow, most of Iowa will see highs in the 40s and a 40% chance of rain developing in central Iowa about afternoon. Southeasterly wind here at 10 to 20. Rain likely on Saturday night with a low near 40. Sunday's highs in the 40s. Cloudy, again a good chance of rain, and for the extended outlook, chance of some snow with the rain or without it on both Monday and Wednesday. Also a general drop in temperatures from the 40s to the 30s. At 10 o'clock, it's 24 degrees. It should be sort of a mixed weekend if you're out there. Drive carefully tonight and tomorrow morning.
Yeah, very slippery night out tonight. Thank you, Connie.
Okay, Connie, let's turn it over to Heidi now. Friday night, always a busy night in the sports department. What's going on?
It was a rough night tonight, too, Dave, for the Cyclones. They lost big at the Knoxville Classic, rather the Volunteer Classic in Knoxville, but the Drake Bulldogs are winning right now, and we'll tell you about it coming up next. For the first time this year, the Iowa State Cyclones had an experience they hope they'll never have again. The Cyclones were blown out of the gym, 80-54 by 11th-ranked Virginia Tech. That was the first round of the Volunteer Classic in Knoxville. Iowa State scored the first bucket, but after the Hokies tied it up at 2, they never looked back. Virginia Tech led 34-28 at halftime, and then outscored Iowa State 16-2 to start the second half. Helped by Cyclone turnovers, the Hokies gradually pulled away, and with 2.5 minutes left, they led by 28 points. Cyclone Barry Stevens was held to only 6 points. Jeff Hornacek was the only Cyclone in double figures with 14. Perry Young, who hit 18 for Tech in the first half, wound up with 28. Iowa State is now 5-2 and will play the Golden Eagles of Southern Mississippi tomorrow night in the consolation game. Tennessee beat Southern Mississippi in tonight's second game, 89-73. Here in Des Moines, the Drake Bulldogs are hosting their second annual AAA Basketball Classic at Vets, and with about 5 minutes to go in the second half, Drake is leading 57-51. The game's been close all night, and let's take a look at some action from the first half. Midway through the first half, Darrell Lloyd, number 45, hits a jumper from the corner to give the Bulldogs a 21-16 lead. On the next trip down the floor, North Texas State's Larry Banks cans a bank shot, and the Mean Green is down by 3. Lloyd led the Drake Bulldogs with 9 points in the first half, despite playing only 11 minutes. Drake shot 52% from the field in the opening 20 minutes. North Texas 42%, but the Dogs trailed at the half 35-32 due to the tough rebounding in North Texas State. The Mean Green out-rebounded the Bulldogs 24-13. Once again, with about 5 minutes left, Drake is leading 57-51. In the first game tonight, Texas A&M turned back Valparaiso 76-66. Here are some highlights. The Aggies cruised to a 19-point lead at the half, helped by 10 points from number 21, Winston Crite, who picks up a loose ball and dumps it in for 2. Crite played well defensively also in the first half with 6 rebounds. Texas A&M gained its lead by means of a well-executed fast break game. Halftime score was 39-20. The Aggies led 74-54 with about 3.5 minutes left, but a furious Valpo rally brought them to 74-66 with 18 seconds left, and Crite led all scorers with 19 points. Larry Doherty was tops for Valparaiso with 16. Elsewhere in college basketball, it was Indiana 80, Western Kentucky 57, Wisconsin 90, Dartmouth 70. Colorado and Wyoming are tied at 56 in the second half. It was Oklahoma State over San Diego 62-52, SMU 90, Idaho 71, and Creighton 71, Regis College 51. Plenty of high school basketball games around the state tonight, so let's get right to the scoring. In girls Metro action, number 13 Valley stopped North Tech 58-53. It was Dowling 64, Hoover 58, Roosevelt 61, East 55, and Lincoln 54, Ames 50. Also winning tonight was Dallas Center over Woodward Granger 61-47, Waukee 84, Ogden 42, Bondurant Farrar 52, Adel 48, Prairie City 74, Eddyville 32, Melcher Dallas 75, Central Decatur 52, Ankeny 60, Southeast Polk 48, and Indianola over Newton 55-33. In boys games in the Metro, it was Valley holding off North Tech 56-54, Dowling over Hoover 84-70, and Pat Paris has that story.
Dowling had little trouble tonight when they played host to Hoover. The Maroons ran all over the Huskies to win by 14. Dowling outscored Hoover 10-1 in the first 3 minutes of the game and never looked back. When Tony Morrow scored on this fast break, it put the Maroons up by 15. They led 43-29 at halftime. The second half, both teams played about even, which allowed Dowling to win 84-70. Hoover's Todd Culp led all scorers with 25 points, while Dave Stacy paced the Maroons with 21, 14 of those coming in the first half. Pat Paris, TV-8 Sports at 10.
Also tonight, East 87, Roosevelt 36, Lincoln 65, Ames 40. Other boys scores, Waukee over Ogden 66-43, Adele 63, Bondurant Farrar 45, Colfax over North Mahaska 63-50, and Ankeny over Southeast Polk 80-51. In women's basketball tonight, Drake lost its second straight on the road 75-64 to Illinois, and at the Grandview Invitational it was Grandview over Lincoln University 91-73. In the NFL tonight, in the third quarter, the 49ers are leading the Rams 17-13. An LA win would give the Rams an automatic playoff berth. In college wrestling tonight, Iowa won big over UNI 43-3, and it was Iowa State over Penn State on the road 24-14.
Wall Street ended this week on an up note. The Dow Jones Industrial Average was up over 7 points, an average share 16 cents higher in value, trading today 95 million shares. New York gold was down $2.10 an ounce, silver down 3 cents. Both hogs and cattle steady today at Iowa livestock markets, and at the elevators, corn steady to 3 higher, beans up 4 to 8. Connie?
Lows tonight near 20, mostly cloudy skies, chance of rain developing late tomorrow and continuing through Saturday and Sunday and Sunday night, and at 10 o'clock, though, it's only 24 degrees.
Go on forever.
Maybe.
Thank you, Connie, and thank you for being with us. Have a good weekend. Stay tuned now for Entertainment Tonight.